Okay, we are live, and this is ArtisanTony, and it is right here. If you wanted to know, well, it's actually not exactly right there. It's right there. uh, I'm going to start a series of videos called just design build tutorials with ArtisanTony. And I think after 45 years in the construction industry, I can do this and maybe provide some good information. So I may do a series of these, and what it's going to do is connect the drawing world with the real world. Okay, so this is like a floor plan. This is a house I'm building right now. This is not the drawing file. I pulled this two-dimensional floor plan out of the model. I always start off with a two-dimensional floor plan, and but I just pulled the floor plan in here just for the purposes of this drawing. This is kind of a template. This Fibonacci rectangle is kind of it's in my template drawing, right? And here's my artisan north arrow. I put these two things in there to remind me when I start in a new drawing to think about function and design. To combine the idea of architecture and design and construction all into one, hopefully. And that's what I hope to do with these videos. So anyway, I'll get started so I don't ramble too much. But I was watching where is it? This short by SketchUp here, the main SketchUp channel on YouTube. And I wonder if you can hear it. Did I play? Can you hear it? Let's play it a little bit.
SketchUp. That simple. So if my concern is the framing in here, and it's going to be a 2x, I'm going to double click to enter and select the surface of the top. I'm going to say edit, copy. Now I'm going to exit that group by clicking outside, and I'm going to say edit, paste in place. So that takes that surface and puts it exactly where it was, but outside the group. Now, to get walls around here, all I have to do is grab offset and pull the offset, the width of the walls. Now, right here, we're gonna hit some differing mentalities or ways to do this.
Yeah, first of all, there's gonna be like the SketchUp way and the construction way. I'll just prep you for that. I'm kind of kidding around here, okay?
Width of the wall you draw right here is the width of the wall you want to see in SketchUp. That simple. So if my concern,
it's not that simple, and I'm going to show you why,
is the framing in here, and it's going to be a 2x6 wall, I'll offset this 5.5 inches and model from there.
No.
If what you need to see for your purposes is the full finished wall width, I want to see from outside of siding to inside of drywall on the
No, not siding.
Inside, then you might be putting 7.5 inches in here. I'm going to double click to enter and select the surface of the top.
So if you didn't follow that, you can go to SketchUp's.
I'm going to double click to enter and
there's the Presley girls. I like them.
I'm going to double click to enter and select this.
You can go to SketchUp's channel and watch their shorts and their videos. They're actually pretty good, but the problem is when they start to delve into the construction world, which they have developed this software not just for construction but for 3D modeling, 3D printing. It's an all-in-one sort of package. So the guys who obviously run this channel are not construction experts. They are SketchUp. They are software experts. So I'm going to show you from a perspective of a construction expert. So the main problem was the main issue, and this is really important. So if you want to learn a little bit about actual importance of this, please be patient and hang with me for a while, okay? Because the house line is actually one of the most important concepts in the construction document world. And I'm saying construction documents because there is the world of art and architecture, and then there is the world of construction, the real world And believe me, I worked out of my 45 years in the industry, 10 or 12 of those was spent working in architecture at a pretty good sized architecture firm. I went to work for one, and I worked my way up to an associate, which is the next step to becoming a partner. So I wasn't just a flunky there. Okay, I got into the inner circle. I wanted to learn the entire business, so because I was going to start my own design build business, and I wanted to get that experience under my belt. And that's where I discovered that they need people like me, because I was, had the experience in construction that I had. They needed someone like me to take their art and interpret it or convert it into something that contractors can read. Okay, so this concept of the house line, and they didn't mention it in the SketchUp video because they're not familiar with construction documents terminology. Okay, the house line is literally one of the most important concepts that you can understand. It goes all the way down to the legal idea, the idea of your house being legally placed in a spot on your property. And you can literally get your house demolished based on whether you have a good understanding of the house line or not. Okay, if you misplace your house, let's say you're in an urban environment. I built plenty of homes where we had lots that were 50 foot wide. You had a 15-foot setback on the sides, and the owner said, I want to take up the rest of that. I want to build a house that'll fit right inside that setback, or maybe it was 10 feet. In an urban environment, you typically will have less of a setback on the sides. Okay, so maybe you have 10 feet. So maybe the house is going to be 30 feet. But guess what? If you get the house over the line, it doesn't matter by how much. The building official can say, I'm sorry, you're going to whack off that part of the house. Okay, and I've seen it done before. I've seen people have to take concrete chainsaws and cut the corner off of a foundation because it was sticking over a diagonal property line. So anyway, this is something that if you're going to build your own home, you really need to understand. And there's ways to do this. Now, if you've got 50 acres and you're building out in the middle of the woods, like I have here, it doesn't really matter that much. But it is a concept that you need to understand. So let's get down to it. He was saying in that video, and the reason I'm doing this particular tutorial is because they're spreading misinformation a bit. They're not meaning to, but they are. Okay, they're insinuating that it doesn't matter. It's just, draw the walls however you want, and you can do that, but you have to be very careful about where you tell the contractor where the house line is, because the contractor understands this terminology. Your designer, your architect, may not understand it, but your contractor certainly will, because most every project that a contractor deals with, he is going to have to deal with the bank, some form of funding on a project. Okay, so a lot of times we have to deal with banks through construction loans that our customers have. So one of the first things they will ask you for is, once you ask them for that first draw, which is a foundation draw, they will say, where is your foundation survey? And you'll say, oh yeah, I got to get one of those. So you'll run out, you'll get your surveyor, but guess what? You don't actually run out and get a surveyor at that point. A contractor gets a surveyor at the beginning of the project. I have a guy, his name is Ski. We call him Ski, it's a nickname. He comes out, he will first he will stake out the corners of the house based on the house line, and then we will dig the footings, we will pour the footings, then he will come back and place pins, little nails, at the very corner of the house line, okay? And that is a legal, that is a point in the ground that you can legally say, my house is at the right point in the property, okay? So now after all that and the foundation is complete, you can you ask for a draw from the bank. They will ask you, where's your foundation survey, and you'll say, I got it right here. I've been in the process of using a surveyor the whole time. I have my foundation survey, and voila, here it is, and you get your draw, and everyone's happy. And so you can see where it's not just a willy-nilly, oh, let's just draw a wall and we'll, it's okay. So now let's delve into this a little bit. Let's connect the two-dimensional plan, okay, the two-dimensional drawing. Let's take this corner and let's decide where it actually is here, okay? Let's think about the sequence of construction. Now, one thing I don't show is the footing. Let's see, I've got a section. Yeah, I've got a wall section. This is a two-dimensional wall section. These are two types, and I'm going to make a point here too. This is one with a crawl space, and this is a turn-down slab. Okay, this is how we represent different types of wall sections in architecture. Okay, now I don't show the footing, but it's down here underground. You can see the concrete block in this case sits on top of a footing. Okay, so pretend that's this, under the ground. Pretend like this is, the ground and the footing's under there. So this is sitting on there. Okay, so think about the sequence of, the operation here of the order of construction. The first thing you do is, like I said earlier, you pour. You have your footings spotted on the ground by your surveyor, and then we come out and dig them. They're bigger. You can see here the footings are bigger, they're wider than the foundation, and that's typically based on the number of stories that you go, the amount of, basically it's the load that you're putting on this ground here per linear foot, okay? So the footing is designed to take the load of this house and spread it. They're also called spread footings. Okay, it spreads the load of all that above it, out over this area and in a linear fashion. Okay, so we have that, and we got our foundation done, and then our foundation, our little I start to say our little surveyor. But my big surveyor comes out and puts little nails right here. He'll put a little nail right there on the footing, right? So that's the three-dimensional point. On the plan, it is right here on the corner, okay? And where is that here? Vertical in a 3D section, okay? It's the line of your concrete block is your house line. Okay, now this, I stole it. I didn't steal it, I borrowed it. I borrowed this off of 3D Warehouse because I don't have all day to draw these things. I am going to save it though because it's a nice little section, or a nice little model of built up whatever. But in a lot of cases, you won't have this insulation sometimes. And most, in my climate and here in Tennessee, we typically don't use that. You'll typically have this brick, and I don't know why they didn't group it. I'm having to group it for them. It will typically be over here. There'll only be usually a 1/2-inch gap, and the reason for that is because the bottom. And actually it would be up here because I'm pushing. I didn't mean to push the control button. Dang it. Let's go. Are we still in control here? I'm not in control. What's going on? I got my laptop. I've got my my laptop under, I've got two monitors, so I'm having to look under. So typically, and I'm just going to kind of cheat this. I'm just going to scale this because, like I said, I don't want it to take all day on this video, but I'm trying to get a point across so that and the reason I'm trying to help different types of people here, right? I'm trying to help people who are getting into drafting, who are architecture and want to learn something about construction. But the thing about the brick is that most people think there's this huge air gap in there. Okay, there's not, because the thing you set it on is a 12-inch. Typically, 99 out of 100 homes that have brick on them will have this 12-inch course sitting either on the footing or a couple of rows up. Because what you'll do is you'll lay these wider block on the below grade, right? So you would lay these up to maybe here, and if the grade was going to come up that far, but that saves you on brick, right? So that gives you a brick ledge, and people will argue about this air gap all day long. But if all you have to do is go out to a construction site, a lot of these people, I don't get it. All they have to do is go out to a construction site, and they're actually 11 and 5/8. Okay. So the whole wall's a little off as far as scale, because whoever drew these concrete blocks thought they were actually 8 inches wide, but they're not. They're only 8-inch block is 7 and 5/8 wide. Well, he's got it close, but anyway, I'm not complaining about that. But anyway, again, you see, the house line. Even if you have brick on the foundation, this is still the house line, the corner of because the brick is a veneer and the siding is a veneer. I think they're trying to show ephes like a stucco. Ephes is like a synthetic stucco, yeah, because they got all these different layers. And there would be this brick. This layer wouldn't be here. I really don't have time to go into complete detail on this, but this row wouldn't be there, and there would be like a brick ledge and all that. There would be all. I'm not going. The point of this video is not to go into details about how things are necessarily built, although this is a cool way to display that, right? The point here is establishing where the house line is and showing the importance of it. Okay. And again, it goes back to sequence, right? Because now, if we do have a brick ledge, we have to tell the block mason that this, where these little nails were put, is the house line, not the brick face, not the face of the brick. Okay, that's added to the house line. Now, if you're going to have this situation, you need to allow for the brick. Okay, if you're going to just stucco your foundation, if you're just going to have a raw foundation and you're going to just stucco it, you don't have to worry about as far as the setback, right? So if I'm going to have brick, I'm going to set this back. The house, I might even set it back 6 inches if I've got room, but I'm going to do a minimum of 4. Okay, but I'm still gonna dimension, and we'll get into that in a second. I'm still gonna dimension from the house line, not the face of the brick. Okay, because honestly, when the brick mason starts laying brick, sometimes they actually do leave a little more. Sometimes it actually hangs over. Did I not get that? Yeah. Sometimes, and you don't know. Sometimes you don't know what the brick mason's gonna always do, right? He may leave that gap. He may leave, that gap. He may leave this gap, right? This is a veneer. It's non-structural. It's art. It's not a thing, really. It's not structural. So it's just like paint. Okay, you don't know necessarily how thick it's going to be or where it's going to go. All you know is where your house line is. Okay, that's the controlling factor. If you get the house line where it's supposed to be on the site, then it doesn't matter. Really, to a certain extent, it doesn't matter about this. Okay, you just need to allow, because when the surveyor comes back to verify the foundation survey, he's going to place his rod, somewhere on the corner of this brick, and that's where he's going to say, you know, when he does the foundation survey, he will come back. So, you know, this would be offset. You know, he would actually be surveying that point right there because he can't access that point. So what we do is when we're laying this point out on the footings, we allow for the brick, okay, but we don't call that the house line, okay. And I think the more you get into this, the more you'll realize why this is important, okay. So now, what comes next? We got our footings, right? What happens next? You have to lay this block, okay. Now, what do we want to do? We want to coordinate the construction of this house with we want to coordinate the foundation with the framing and everything else, and the roof framing, how that all lines up, right? And in this section probably shows it better here. The other mistake that people make is thinking that the sheeting hangs over past the house line. The house line, this line right here, is the controlling factor, okay? You see how nothing passes over that house line except for your veneer, which doesn't matter. You see, when the surveyor comes back and he starts to place your house on the property, he's not going to worry about the siding or even the roof overhang. Did you know that your roof overhang, that you can have 2 feet of your overhang into the setback? And the only time you have to really worry about that is, like I said, if you're right on the setback, you can have 2 feet. So he doesn't concern himself with any of that, or the siding or anything. He comes down to this point right here, because that's the grade, and he will establish this point right here, right there, that little intersection. That's the house line. That's the one you're concerned about. And again, you're thinking, oh, this doesn't matter. It matters. It matters to if you're becoming a contractor, you know, if you're just now getting into construction and you want to be a design and build contractor, or you want to be a draftsman, you know, anything in design, you really need to get this concept, because it's just like the first question should be, where's the house, you know, where's my house line? Okay, so now that we've established that the house line control is the controlling factor, you see your treated plate is lined up with the house line, your band, your header joist is lined up with it, your sheeting on your wall. When we pop our lines for our walls, we'll come back here and we'll pop it at 4 inches, right? Because if you're using 2x4 walls, if you're using 2x6 walls, we set it back at 6 inch. Well, yeah, 6 inches, right? Because we want to leave a 1/2 inch ledge here for the sheeting. Okay, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the framing goes on the house line and then the sheeting laps over this. But guess what you just did? You cursed yourself, right? Not only are you going to use more sheeting for no reason, there's no reason. This band, this header joist, this box seal, we have like 20 names for this thing, is thick enough to where it doesn't need sheeting over the top of it. Okay, you can easily. The other thing is the sheeting forms the function. I just realized the guy doesn't have a back on his sheeting, but the sheeting forms a functional role in the wall. It actually braces the wall. The bottom of the sheeting is supposed to be nailed to the bottom plate, right, and then to all the studs in a pattern, a nailing pattern. And if this is a shear wall, you're supposed to have nails every 6 inches nailed into the bottom plate. Now, guess what happens if you run this sheeting out here, right? Can we get all this stuff together? If you run this sheeting out here, you know, and you run it down here, you're gonna think you're gonna feel proud of yourself. But You were going to realize later that you made a mistake, especially on an 8-foot wall, because guess what? The top of this OSB has to be nailed into something too, especially if it's a shear wall. You can't just leave OSB. Now this wall section is a diagram, right? So it's a cutaway type thing, right? It doesn't show the entire thing, but the sheeting goes up to the top plate and is nailed every 6 inches along the top plate. All the edges of OSB are supposed to be nailed. You're not supposed to, you see a lot of people lay OSB down on its side, and so there's a gap here, and so guess what? That means your sheeting is only nailed one nail every 16 inches. Is that good? No, it's terrible. Your sheeting should be stood up vertically so that all the edges of it should be nailed. Anyway, that's another pet peeve that anyway is a disease on the internet. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. But the point is that this house line is the controlling factor. Okay, so this is kind of the representation of the real world right here. This is how we do it. And when you get to a second floor, when you get to the second floor, this floor system is then lined up with the framing. See, oops, like this, right? Well, there's a top plate, right? I'm missing this is not the top of the wall. I'm just trying to demonstrate. So now the sheeting can start to bypass, right? But guess what? When you start your second floor wall up here, the sheeting is then nailed again to this bottom plate, and then you fill in the band with scrap pieces, okay? Because again, the sheeting serves the function. Now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of building inspectors overlook that. A lot of people get by with laying the OSB down on its edge, but only because typically in a house you will have interior walls that brace the house. I think the rule is you can't go more than 30 feet of unbraced wall. If you do, it's a shear wall, and that's where these requirements kick in for nailing patterns on the OSB. So that's how they get by sometimes with laying it down. But if you're building your own house, if you find the contractor's done this, you need to make him block between the studs wherever he's left this OSB, because OSB is bad about being wavy and it'll buckle out your siding. Anyway, I didn't want to get off on that rabbit hole down it. But going back to now, you're designing your house. Now, we finally get to the point where we can talk about the two-dimensional floor plan. And okay, so what does that? So this, well, now we've come full circle. How wide do you think that means that this is drawn? Okay, so what this is made up of now is, since your is a half inch, since your sheeting is, this is the outside of your sheeting, so this is going to be your sheeting line. This is 5.5. That's your stud line. Now some people actually show this, but I think it makes the walls kind of dark, because when you print a drawing, these lines just become one big blob. If a drawing, especially if it's a small scale, that the printer can't print these lines set as separate lines. It just turns out to be a blob. So what I do is I represent the whole wall as one thickness, right? Because, and we'll get into this in a second, but this is not supposed to be, the two-dimensional floor plan is not supposed to be an exact replication or of the wall. It's a graphic representation of the thickness of the wall. Okay, and if you have your house line placed properly, then you're good. You don't have to worry about it. So some people will do this, and they will, just for the sake of, well, that's too much trouble, I'd have to do away with my hatch. Okay, so anyway, so that's how you come up with the the thickness of your wall. Again, he was indicating that he was saying that the sheeting was on the outside of the house line. Okay, if that was the case, where would that line be? It would be out here. What if I haven't checked? I've been so excited about this. Or some people would. Oh, I don't have any comments. That's probably good. No, I'm just kidding. If you have any comments or questions, leave them there, and I'll check. But going back to this means that your house line, you would be indicating it here, and then you would have your OSB sticking out, and then you would have your siding sticking out past that. When in reality, your OSB is flush, your sheeting is flush with the house line. Right. So, and this goes back to placement, right? It goes back to sequence, really, because what do you do first, or what do you do next after you lay your concrete block? You put this plate on, this mud seal, this rat seal. Again, we have a bunch of different names depending on what happened to my box seal. Did I delete it? Oh, I copied it up there. Dang it. I meant to copy it, not move it. Let's put it back down here. I don't know exactly where I had it. I don't guess it. Oh, I had it in the middle. Yeah, I had it in the middle of the Advantech, or I had the Advantech breaking on it. So, oh, did I lose my train of thought? Oh, the next thing you do is you put your mud seal down, right, and you start framing. Well, what does the carpenter need to know? The carpenter needs to know how big the floor is, right? Right. So the other thing is, let's go and move on to where I have the. Oh Lord, I had the. Oh, I do have it. Again, this is the actual sheet. The layout is the software that we use in SketchUp. It comes with SketchUp that we use to set up our sheets with, right? So we have site plan, foundation plan. These are all. This is this is an old one, so it's kind of messed up. But the house got moved around on the site plan, and it's referenced here, so that's why that looked funky. It's kind of funny. But the point is now that when you dimension something to the house line, right? Guess who the first guy on the job is? It's the carpenter, right? The carpenter is the main subcontractor. The carpenter is the guy. Back in my day when I first started up, the carpenter was kind of the guy who kind of ran the whole job. And he would, work with the electricians and plumbers and heat and air guys and do blocking and framing around things and all that they needed. But the carpenter subcontractor was the one who kind of knew a bit about all of it, right? So he's the first guy on the job. So who are you going to cater to with dimensions? What if I had what if he didn't know where? What if the carpenter knows where the house line is, but what if he didn't? And I dimension this line. This one's confusing enough because we actually had to move the footings on this one. We made it bigger, and so I got this kind of weird dimension. I don't like these weird dimensions, but you see, that would right off the bat, the framer would say, what is that ½ inch for? Are you trying to tell me that the house line? You see, it just causes all kinds of problems. So we say no. We always use the standard. You see, if we stick to a standard, we all don't have to guess. And this is another reason why it's important. I'm going to build on the fact. I'm going to keep adding layers to why this is important. Okay, when you actually start building your house, the framer's going to want to know where the house line is. Okay, and so this is how we dimension. We dimension to the house line. Again, this is 28.5 because I ended up coming back and revising the drawings based on the finished foundation. I like to do, and I do that for my framer. So So now he's got a reference, and this is why I don't get too fancy. You see how that line's real thick? Well, if I had tried to draw the wall, the sheeting and the drywall, it would be a bigger blob than that. Okay, and this is kind of how layout does the perimeter. It'll make the perimeter line thicker. Well, if you add the sheeting, it would be like right here, and then it would be that blob would be another blobby line beside it, and it gets kind of. At some point, you have a hard time telling where it's what it's dimensioning to. And you can see here, my framer knows that 6.5 inches is the total thickness of the sheeting and the drywall. And the reason we do to the drywall dimensions, like here's an interior wall that's a 2x4 wall, which is 4.5 because you got 3.5 and ½ inch on each side. We do that for the homeowner's sake because the homeowner always wants to know how big is this room. And in no way am I going to tell them the framing dimension. I'm going to tell them the face of drywall, because I've had people go around with a ruler, with a tape measure at the end and go, this room's not 16, it's an inch less than what you told me. So we always do face of drywall. We always do face of finish when we do our dimensions. You can see here that line's going there and going there. So, and then we're going back to SketchUp. So you can see here how that all works out. So I hope this kind of puts down some myths about this. Probably not, because the internet is 90% misinformation and 10% good information. But and the other thing we would do too is on the drawings, we would have wall type schedules. Like this might be wall type A, this might be wall type B, and these are all variations of this. This has got typically this is insulation. That curvy line is insulation, and then you got your drywall, and here you can see you got this is a metal stud wall. You got the metal track on the bottom, the drywall on both sides. So we would show it this way. We would point to this wall, and I'm building. If I go back to layout, I'm building this house myself, so I don't get into a lot of unnecessary like wall tops and symbols and all that, because I know, since I designed it, I know what all the wall tops are. But if you're in architecture, where's a little tag? You might have a little tag like this, and typically it would be a letter like A, caps A, wall type A, and you'd have a little line like that going to it. So the contractor, if I was doing a set of drawings for another contractor, which I do, atdrafting.com is the drafting side of my design build business, and I do drawings for work for people all over the place. So you would have a wall type symbol that would say, oh, wall, that was wall type A, and then they'd go over to the detail sheet, which is not so, it's not in SketchUp, but I just happen to have it in here for.
This is your country cousins here to talk about
What country cousins?
cast iron.
Good Lord, Presley girls. I actually interviewed them on my Pi-Fi show. It's kind of funny. And so then you might have that same, well, you'd have a schedule of wall types, and you'd have that little box, that same symbol underneath here, and this would be A, wall type A. But of course it would represent the actual, and then we have wall sections, where if you go back to the drawings, you would see a section. Where's the section thingamabob? Sometimes that's plain. Let's see, elegant. sometimes they don't have drawing references. Let's go to plane and then go to sections and elevations. Here we go. For a wall section, you would grab one of these babies and you would turn it, where's the little turning thing? You would turn it like this, and then you'd place it somewhere like this, right? The little arrow is the direction that the cut is facing, right? And usually it'll have a little flag on the end of it. I don't know what happened to the little flag. It'll have a little flag like that, because if that means it stops there. Sometimes you'll have a section through the entire house, like this. Well, oh, I see. They've done it separate. They've got them separate, don't they? Yeah, they got the little flags separately. I forgot about that. So, but again, I don't necessarily need all that, because if I'm designing the house by the time I get through is in my head, and I can pretty much build it. I don't need all the. See, there's a difference in drawing. When you're doing a set of construction documents that is meant for a contract, you have to go to a further extent than you would if you were building a house for yourself, or if I was building a spec house for someone. I only have to go to a certain extent on the drawings. I'm also not charging them as much for the drawings. If I'm doing a full set of construction drawings, that's 2 or 3 times the money, the time, because you would have pages and pages of details. You'd have foundation details, wall details. You'd have elevations, interior elevations of kitchen cabinets and millwork, and it's just endless. Where I can build an entire house with mainly just really a floor plan. But the only reason I do the modeling for the homeowner's sake, just to translate, to communicate with them about the design of the home, obviously. So, let's see if we have any questions. What's going on? There's Richard, Nathan. How are you feeling, Tony? Oh, hey, Nate. How's it going? Nate is a contractor in Murfreesboro, and I help him out with some drawings. And there's Richard, my friend from the UK. He's a wealthy guy that travels around the world. He came to see me last summer. He's a good guy. I like Richard. He did get a round, a 5.56 round stuck in my AR, but I forgave him for that. See what he has to say about that. He's probably gone. Journeyman Randy. Hey, Journeyman Randy. There's Journeyman. Journeyman knows where the house line is. So, anyway, I didn't mean to ramble too much about this, but when I saw that video from SketchUp, is, like I said, it's a good channel. Check it out if you're into. Let's see. There's a rabbit hole right here. Twitter. I'll tell you. You have to really. What did I do with? Oh, okay. It's above the.
I'm going to double click to enter and select.
SketchUp has a really, they have a pretty decent YouTube channel, but the guys who are running it aren't really construction guys. So sometimes they give a little bit weird advice. I think they should stick to how to operate SketchUp. I'm not trying to, represent that I can build a software platform. And I think people who build software platforms should probably not represent that they are, giving construction advice or techniques on drawing. Which I get it. He's trying to show how to offset the walls, but some of the statements they make are pretty bold, and it's one of those things. Let's see. So I don't know if I've covered everything. I think the main point I was trying to get to is that in some cases, the house line is really comes down to a legal issue, where the corner of that house is sitting, right? And I learned on every job, every house I build, I'm reminded of this. on this house right here, if we did not have, if we didn't have 200 or 300 feet of, if for some reason we were on the setback in the back of this house, at the back, this lady would be mad at me right now because we had to move this back wall over like 6 inches because the footing guy came out and dug the footings. When we dig footings, the rule is, you know how the a bucket, a backhoe bucket has teeth on it, right? So we say, again, the house line. I don't think people understand how much this concept is used. So I wonder if I can find a quick. Can I find a backhoe bucket, an excavator bucket? I can't see my keyboard. If you're wondering, I got my keyboard. I got my laptop down here, and I have to reach underneath it. Here's a good one. It's already pointing down. What's that mean? DHE 23? That's funny. We'll use that one. It's probably got all kinds of trash in it, but we'll use it anyway. DHE. That's funny. We're going to delete that part, though. Oopsie. Are the letters on there? Because I really... Dang it, guys. Come on. Quit fooling around in the warehouse, okay? You're supposed to be... messing around. All right, we're gonna talk about this anyway. So when you're out laying out footings, you typically will go at least, and they have more teeth than this on. Okay, this is not accurate, but you'll tell the guy to dig two teeth outside the line, or 3 teeth. Usually I'll look at his bucket, and it's usually 2 or 3 teeth. Okay. And you'll dig the footing bigger all the way around, right? Can I get that down there on there? Can I get it down there? Sometimes things just don't want to cooperate. So pretend, oh my gosh, really? Seriously? Is this thing stuck? Is it glued? No. Get down there on the ground. There we go. So, he'll say, oh, do you want to do 1 tooth or 2 tooth or 3 tooth? And, somewhere you want to get a good 6 or 8 inches, especially if you have brick. See, if you have brick, you got to go wider, right? Because they're going to lay that 12-inch course of brick, right? So the house line is always here. But we have to, if we're going to have brick or something, we have a brick ledge for. You gotta dig outside the line, and that's what we say. You gotta dig outside the line, the house line. When we say dig outside the line, we're talking about the house line. So, in this particular case, we had 3-foot wide footings because the foundation walls were 14, 16 feet, even 18 feet in one section. So we had these real wide footings, and he literally dug. I think he dug. What he did was, still haven't figured out this exactly how he did this, because the surveyor had stakes there, right? It's kind of hard to screw up when the surveyor stakes it out for you. But I think he literally dug it like this, like that. And he didn't leave us enough room to put a wall on there, so we had to move the wall out. So think about the wall. Now the wall's there, right? So anyway, it's important. You can see how much minutia is involved with where the house line is, and it's not just about whether the sheeting sits on top of this band or not, or it goes on the outside. It should be sitting right here, because again, it's supposed to be nailed into the bottom plate of the wall. It's not about all that. It's about everything from when you haven't even started all the way up to where you finished. And again, when at the end of the job, the banker now is going to say, oh, I need a final foundation survey, right? Because they somehow you went out and moved the house during construction. You gave them a foundation survey when you started, after you got the foundation in, but now they want a complete survey. So that's when the surveyor goes back out, and where he pinned this point on the footing, draw me a little arrow there, where he pinned that point on the footing with his rod. Now he can't get to that, so now he's going to say this is where the house is. Okay, but because you had it laid out properly, the house line laid out properly in the first place, and you didn't make that mistake, and you made the proper decision with where to dig, you allowed enough footing to get your 12-inch, your bottom course of block. I don't know why that block looks like that. Again, I stole this out of SketchUp. And it's a good job. They did a good job, though. It looks pretty good. We don't normally put this much detail, and the reason they put this much detail is because it was for like a 3D display. I grabbed all these, which they're pretty cool. But if we're doing a model, we typically don't show, one block at a time. We would draw, for the foundation, I typically draw, a wall like this, and then I might steal that, hatch or something, and put it on there, that poche, but because really the important thing is getting the house line. Because if you do that, then I hate to keep beating that dead horse, but it's just it's one of the most important things that we can really talk about. Let's see, we got a round out. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's right, we did get the round out. Okay. Let's see, banned for life on Twitter. Oh my gosh. You should get a compaction test to determine footing size. That's not totally necessary. If you're, all footings are inspected by the building inspector. If the building inspector comes out and he has an inkling that your soil isn't, but in each area, like I can tell by the color of the soil when we start digging, the darker soil is your topsoil, and then you get this kind of a brownish soil, and you got to get down into the reddish clay. The reddish chert is what we usually find here. And then if you have a question, I have a soils guy that does come out and do soils compaction tests, but they're not required on every job. A lot of that would raise the cost of construction quite a bit if you had to do that on every job. But again, a good builder, I've been digging in dirt for 45 years. You can tell, and of course I'm a heavy guy. I get down in the footings, I'm stomping around, and if I get any resistance at all, then we dig a little more. It's cheaper to dig another few inches or a foot than it is to pay $1,000 for an engineer to come out and tell you got to dig a little deeper. But you can tell once you have some experience. You can tell the good soil from the bad soil. But now on commercial projects, you typically will have to have compaction testing done, it'll just be part of the specifications on the job. But I say unfortunately, in the residential world, you could look at it both ways. You could say it's unfortunate that we don't have requirements for compaction tests, but we do have our footings inspected. So, if the building inspector has experience, I have a bunch of experience. I actually went to the high school with the chief building official in Chattanooga, and he's been there for about 30-something years. So they're all pretty good. They can recognize a bad soil, just by being there and inspecting it. And again, color is the it's just like light. I mean, you can take the color of light and analyze it. You can analyze the spectrum of light or light from its color, right? So I know, the infrared and the blue is the warmest light. I mean, we can do science that way. So we can analyze the soils by their color also. And light is hitting that soil and it's bouncing off and hitting your eyes, right? So the color of the soil is a huge indicator also. Well, I probably beat this to death, but I will admit I was triggered a little bit by the SketchUp video, but but I thought it would be a good point to make, and it also allowed me to get some points about veneers, how veneers work, and how the sheeting works. Really, this was kind of an all-in-one kind of construction lesson, because we talked about the sheeting. The reason the sheeting is sits flush with the house line is more to do with the function of the sheeting and its structural rating and how it creates a shear wall and how it has to be nailed to the bottom plate and not lapped over the band, because it creates this situation here where you can't nail the sheeting in between the studs. We talked about a lot of that kind of stuff where just talking about the house line. So let me see if there's any more questions. But if we don't have any more questions, I'll end it here. I was trying to keep this video a little bit shorter than my normal marathon videos, and I need to actually do some drawing work. Might need to do some drawing work for Nathan. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys, and I appreciate you watching. And if you have any requests for these kind of videos, I'm going to start doing a series of design build tutorials where I connect the design world with the drafting world with the actual construction. So I appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time.